And what I think we'll do is we'll just give it another 90 seconds or so to see if we've got anybody else joining us, and then we will get started. All right, well, I reckon we get started then. Let me just get my camera turned on so it's not just a mystery voice coming from Adobe Connect here. Right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, actually. It is 7 p.m., isn't it? My name is Katrina Bray, and I'm one of the communications managers for the STEM faculty. My remit is student communication engagement, which is why we put on events like this. In fact, if you have any suggestions for events or skills-based ideas that you may want to see us put on, pop it in the chat and I will definitely pick it up. So tonight is going to be our last Freshers event for the October module start. So I hope you enjoy, take advantage of this evening and ask Mariana, Charlene, and Danny as many questions as you need to so you get comfortable with tutorials. So tonight we're going to go through the reasons you should attend and engage with your STEM tutorials. Our seasoned ALs here, or associate lecturers, will present all the benefits you'll reap through attendance. We will even get to hear the perspective of one of your fellow students who has attended several tutorials herself. So let's meet our presenters. Mariana, would you like to introduce yourself and share what modules you're tutoring on this year?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Mariana. I've been an AL for about 15 years, and I teach statistics. And this presentation, I'll be teaching M140.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Charlene, how about you?
Hi, everyone. So I'm an AL in science, and I teach on 5 different modules at each level of study. And I've been working in higher education for about 11 years. So I was working in a traditional university before the Open University, but I really enjoy helping students through the online learning.
Lovely. And last but certainly not least, Danny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Danny, and I'm currently studying towards a degree in environmental science. I'm currently just started my 4th module with the OU. Not quite as brave as Rach, who's doing 2 at a time. I also did an access module as well with science, technology, and maths one. So that was a really good introduction. But yeah, I feel like I'm part of the family. Been to loads of tutorials and ready to answer any questions that any of you have.
Thank you so much. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to our experts who are going to run through some slides with you. Thanks again for joining us. Over to you two.
Okay, so I'm going to be taking the first part of the session tonight. So I hope you all are really looking forward to getting started on your modules this year. I was just wondering how many of you are in your first year of study. Could you give me a thumbs up if you're in your first year? If you haven't used the thumbs up symbol before, what you need to do is go to the top of the page, and next to the little hand symbol, you can use a drop down, and there you'll find agree with the thumbs up next to it. Okay, great. So we got a few new people, maybe some more experienced students, so that's great. So by the end of this session, we hope that you will know what to expect from tutorials, and hopefully you'll understand why it's so important that you attend them live or at least watch the recordings. So we'll share some tips on how to get the most out of tutorials, and then later my colleague Mariana will discuss some of the softer benefits from engaging. So just to make you aware, the session today is being recorded. So for now, you might not have the ability to use your microphone, but if you do, please keep them on mute just for now. And if there's something you'd really like to contribute, or if you'd like to ask a question, then just raise your hand and then we will pause and give you an opportunity at the convenient time. But otherwise, you can keep in touch with us in the chat, and I'm sure Katrina and Mariana will be keeping an eye on any questions in the chat. So I'm going to kick off the session by asking you to complete a poll for me. So you should be able to see the open poll at the top of the page where you can type in your answer. And I'm asking you, what do you anticipate will happen in tutorials? Or maybe if you're in your second year of study, then what generally happens in tutorials? So if you can type your answer in the poll. Let's just put this down a little bit. Okay. So yeah, some good comments so far. So it's a chance to see the module material in practice. So yeah, it's a chance to do some activities and maybe apply your knowledge. You get support and an overview of the modules. Certainly support in hopefully every module, every tutorial. An overview of the module, perhaps more so in the first tutor group tutorial, sometimes in the first module-wide tutorial as well. You'll definitely get a chance to ask questions relating to the unit or the topic. Yeah. Okay, so I will go on to the information I have. So depending on the module you're undertaking, you might have module-wide or national tutorials. And these are, as it says on the tin, all the students from the module are invited to attend those. And often you can book your attendance online. But what I would say that if you haven't managed to book your attendance, you might still be able to attend if you just follow the link on the day of the tutorial. What inevitably happens is that some students who book on don't actually turn up. So if you really do want to come along, then just try and enter the room. You might have cluster tutorials, and there tends to be cluster tutorials where there is a large number of students enrolled in a module, and your cluster will often consist of other students and tutors who are located in the same region in the UK. So, for example, there might be a cluster for Scotland or Wales, or there might be a cluster for the Midlands. And then we have tutor group tutorials, and I think most modules will have these. And as the name suggests, these are delivered by your tutor and just to your tutor group. And there's normally about 20 students in a tutor group. This does change as you get to higher levels of study. So, for example, the final module in the science programs, the group size is normally 10, so that you get a lot more personalised, individualised support from your tutor. So most of the tutorials are online and they tend to be about 1 to 2 hours long. There are sometimes face-to-face tutorials, not on every module, and these tend to be optional. So if there is a face-to-face tutorial, there is normally an online equivalent that you could choose to attend instead if you want to. And the face-to-face tutorials tend to be longer duration. So we know that people have perhaps travelled quite a distance to attend, and so we make it a little more worth their journey time. And we use a software called Adobe Connect to deliver the tutorial, so we're using that tonight. And you obviously all know how to access it, but just for those watching a recording, then you can download an Adobe Connect app, or you could use the browser version. And you don't have to use a laptop, although that probably is the recommended way of using Adobe Connect. You can also access it on your phone, on your tablet, on your iPad. Yeah, your tablet, not your table. Your iPad or any kind of normal PC or laptop. So most of the online tutorials are recorded. And you can check that the recording is happening by looking at the top left corner of the screen. So if you see the little red dot, and there should be one in the session tonight, I can see it, then that means the session is being recorded. There are instances where we don't record online sessions, and these tend to be for drop-in sessions. So when we really want students to use their microphones and ask questions, and we don't tend to record those, but obviously normally they are advertised as being not recorded, so you often do know in advance. So sometimes the tutor will stop the recording before the end of the tutorial so that you can ask questions and feel a little bit more relaxed that it isn't going to be recorded for lots of people to see. And then if you do go on and watch a recording, you'll find that the chat box in the recording is anonymized by default now. That's quite new for this year, but it's quite nice that you've got that anonymity. So if you don't feel embarrassed about asking a question in the chat, because if anyone watches the recording, they won't know who's asked it. So you can join the online tutorials from anywhere in the world, as long as you have internet access. So you might be away on holiday, you might be on public transport, any way that it suits you. And students don't use webcams. So you can wear your pajamas, you don't need to worry about your hair or makeup, and you can maybe be eating your lunch or your dinner as you're attending the tutorial. We do encourage the use of microphones, and to get the best out of your tutorial, and to speak and engage with the tutor that way, you will need a headset. And you can purchase these from Amazon, eBay, or the likes of PC World. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. It doesn't have to be a super gaming headset or anything like that. It can be quite a basic one. But basically the idea is that we reduce the background noise rather than just using like an inbuilt microphone in your device. So even though we encourage the use of microphones, it's not mandatory to speak in a tutorial, so don't feel pressurized. When you join the room, your microphone won't automatically be on. So if you want to use it, you'll need to engage it. And the way you do that is by clicking on the symbol on the slide. So try and find my pointer. Yeah, there it is. So you can see the microphone symbol here. The symbol at the top is green, so someone has engaged it, and that means the microphone is now active. People can hear what they're saying. And if you click on the same symbol again, you can switch it off, so you can mute yourself. So always helpful to know the ins and outs of how to use Adobe Connect. but you'll get familiar with that throughout your tutorials. And if you're studying a first year module, your tutor will normally help you with some of the different tools in Adobe Connect that you can use. And so tutors normally share the presentation slides in advance. So the best thing is to check the forums before the tutorial, and you can download those slides and have a flick through them before the session. Importantly, especially at the OU, we really aim to deliver inclusive tutorials. So tutors will consider the accessibility requirements of students when they prepare and they design the tutorials. But in order to do this effectively, the tutors need to know your needs. So please do make tutors aware of your individual needs well in advance of a tutorial. So especially with your tutor, the person who looks after your tutor group, it really is worth having a chat with them over the phone, or maybe dropping them in an email just to make it clear to them that what you need in order to make the session accessible to you. So if you perhaps lip read, then you might want to ask the tutor to use their webcam in the session. If you are colourblind, then you might ask the tutor to use certain colours on the slides, or perhaps you need the font size to be a certain size. We'll consider those types of requests. And Adobe Connect has some built-in accessibility tools. So, for example, you can use live captioning, so you can see subtitles on screen as the tutor is speaking. I suspect that the subtitles aren't always 100% correct, but maybe that will be a bit of comedy value as well while you're engaging with the tutorial. So really importantly, the tutorials are interactive. So please don't confuse the terminology of tutorials with lectures. They're quite separate and different things. Tutorials are interactive because learning is most effective when it involves active participation. And a lot of the activities in the tutorial are anonymous. So if you're asked to use the drawing tools or give your answer in a poll, or even do like an activity where you drag and drop something across the screen, those are all anonymous activities. So you can be sure that the tutor and other students don't know who's contributing. So we try our best not to put any students on the spot or single anyone out when we're delivering our tutorials. And that's particularly true at level 1. So don't feel, try not to feel anxious about the tutorial. Your tutor is normally very understanding and tries not to put too much pressure on anyone. Tutors can check who has attended or watched a recording of a tutorial. So just to bear in mind that if you ask your tutor for support, maybe over email, then sometimes they will direct you to the tutorial if you haven't already watched it. So that might be a first port of call if you're really finding a particular topic difficult. Make sure that you have engaged with the tutorials before you start to ask for help. So I wanted to now go over to Danny and just see if you've got anything to add or emphasize there.
Now I'm put on the spot. My mind has gone blank. Basically, tutorials throughout all of. So I'm in my 4th year now at the OU, and right from the very beginning of being at the OU, I was petrified of coming into tutorials. I just stayed in the background and I watched, but they are vital to your studies. I think somebody said earlier about seeing how things are worked out is easier when it's done in front of you. because most of these tutorials are recorded, you can go back and watch it as many times as you like. So, but participation in them, I think, is key. I think it's early on, if I ever had a question, I always thought, oh, I'm too scared to write that. But if I'm asking that question, then it's likely that others are asking that question too. So just go ahead. The anonymity means that there's no fear in asking questions, because it doesn't matter. And there's no such thing as a stupid question either. What else did I've wrote a little list. What is it we're going to come on to later? I don't want to cover things that might be come on later.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks, Danny. So yeah, we have Danny's really helpfully come along and to give some perspective from a current student, and we kind of had to come along at the last minute. So the next thing we're going to look at is why students should engage with tutorials. And so I've got another poll for you guys. I see someone spotted it already. But if you can please type in your answer into the poll, and then we'll go through things from a tutor perspective. Okay, so we've got some good answers in the poll here. So to gain a better understanding of the module content, definitely, yeah. To help with learning and understanding and listening to others, always really helpful. Shared experience, can learn more as a group. Yeah, I think that's a really important one. I think Mariana might come on to that a bit later. It's a safe space to interact with the content and share ideas. Yeah, it really should be. And if it isn't, feedback either to your tutor or to the module team, because if you don't feel like it's a safe space, there might be things that we can be doing to help you feel more safe. So to add to that, I'd like to say that during a tutorial, there are opportunities to practice skills and apply knowledge in order to increase your confidence. And it's always a good idea to try something and make those mistakes while there is a tutor available to correct them. So nobody will judge you. All the other students are in the session to learn too. So you should be able to feel comfortable and confident to have a go. There are often activities where you get to do a bit of collaborative problem solving, so you can start to gain ideas from other students and also recognise your own strengths and weaknesses. It's a good idea to let your tutor identify your strengths and weaknesses too, so they can see where perhaps you might need a little bit of extra support, or perhaps they might need to explain something in a different way to help you understand. Tutors will often highlight important learning points. So things might be explained by a tutor in a different way to how they are delivered in the module materials. So I think that's always really nice, just to have a different angle on different topics. You'll certainly get assessment guidance and preparation advice, and sometimes you get some general feedback from assessments that you have already done. So if a tutor group have made similar errors, then maybe your tutor will go over some of those points as well. In most tutorials, I think you'll find that you get direction on what to do next and a little bit of motivation as well. So we'll often stress when things are going to count strongly towards your module mark, and whether particular activities are mandatory in order to pass a module. We'll try and give you advice on those. There certainly will be opportunities to ask your questions to the tutor, and even if you don't feel like asking them in the session, then you can always drop your tutor an email afterwards and ask to clarify something. Don't forget, you've always got the tutor group forum for that as well, and it's quite useful to ask questions in the tutor group forum, because other students will be able to see the answer, and quite often they will have similar questions. So you also get a chance to bounce ideas of other students and learn from their life experiences. So we're all adults here, and some of the students at the OU have really relevant and really useful experiences that they can talk about in the tutorial, and they can share their wisdom with you as well. So you will get a chance to practice transferable skills, and having the ability to communicate your ideas with others and contribute to group activities. These are important transferable skills that graduate employers will be looking for. So really try not to shy away for these types of activities. And if you decide to go on to a career in teaching, or perhaps you might need to present in your workplace, you can actually pick up some ideas about how to deliver a session and present just right by watching a tutor and stealing some of their brilliant ideas. And there has been a lot of research around tutorial attendance and success. Ultimately, attending tutorials will contribute positively to your academic success. And there is a study from, I've forgotten which university, Loughborough, yes, on the slide. And there's a study at Loughborough University that found that over 90% of students that failed a first year mathematics module had really accessed the support offered. Okay, so I'm not implying a cause and effect there, because we know that we can't assume that in science, but there is certainly a correlation, and yeah, that's something to bear in mind. So because you're studying, yourself or someone else has paid for your study, so maybe that's your employer if it's not yourself. And even if you have a student loan, ultimately you're going to be paying for the privilege of studying at a later date. So really, in my mind, try and get your money's worth. Okay, so you're paying for the ability to attend tutorials. So yeah, make the most of it while you can. So Danny, is there anything you want to add there?
Yes, I have a few things written down actually. So talking about, as I said, I was really shy in the beginning of my studies, and even just attending tutorials in the early days, even if I didn't participate in the chat, it just helped build my confidence in participating at a later date. Things like just navigating the chat using the buttons, things like that. It just helped build my confidence. So just even if it's early days for you, just attend them. It's just, like you said, it's information that you might not get. There could be something in there that you've not quite thought of. Things like you were talking about your own tutorials. Mostly when you're attending tutorials, there'll be various dates covering the same content. I personally found that if I knew that my own personal tutor was presenting them, I chose those over ones that weren't, because they might have a specific style that they like you to, that they're going to mark your work in. So I found that they were really good ones to attend. But as I said, usually the same content is covered by 4 different people or whatever. So you can pick one which is convenient for you to attend. Other things that I found was really helpful were things like drop-in sessions. Even if I had no questions to ask, or didn't think that even just being there, if other people had a question that I hadn't yet thought of, that helped me, or it prompted me to ask a question that I didn't think I had. And there's also, even if I'd completed a TMA and I thought, right, I'm done and dusted, I'd still attend the TMA drop-in sessions, because again, there could be something that somebody else has brought up and I thought, oh, that's a really good idea, I'm going to use that for my own TMA. But attend as many as you can. Like Charlene, you were saying, get your money's worth. If you're available, you can do it anywhere. It just builds your confidence. And like you said, transferable skills. Honestly, I couldn't believe 4.5 years ago that I'd be helping to host a tutorial myself. So just jump in, do it. It's amazing.
It's really nice to have a student perspective, because there's things that you don't always think of as a tutor. But yeah, it's some really good comments there. And I think you mentioned one thing about using the online rooms, and nowadays, a lot of employers expect you to be comfortable using online rooms. So having that practice by using Adobe Connect is a really helpful thing. And I think, as you also touched upon, your tutor marks your work. So they can help you understand what they're going to be looking for during a tutorial. That's something I definitely try to do in my tutor group tutorials. So I've got another poll for you now. So this is the final one from me. So how can students get the most out of tutorials? Okay, so I'm looking for some maybe practical tips here as what students can do to help themselves. I really like these contributions in the poll. They're really good. So be prepared by reading the material and be willing to ask questions. Yeah, that's like definitely something I would advise my students to do. And attend on time and take notes. Yeah, absolutely. Attend on time if you can. What I would say is, if you are late or if you do have to leave early, it's normally not a problem. As long as you're not disruptive when you're doing so, then tutors don't normally mind. It's kind of expected that people have a lot of other things going on in their lives, and we can understand if you don't quite make it on time, or if you have to go and pick up your kids from school before the tutorial ends or something like that. It's fine. Take notes. Yes, please do take notes. We'll come on to that in a moment. And have an idea of what you want to get from it beforehand. Yeah, that's a really nice one. So if you recognise that you maybe need a bit more practice from maths, or you don't quite understand something, you can come along prepared with your questions and maybe even ask the tutor just to demonstrate something for you. Okay, so some tips from me is make the tutor aware of your accessibility needs. So, some people do have those additional needs, and although if you've declared a disability or a health issue with the Open University, your tutor will be able to access that information. But sometimes it helps to clarify your needs with your tutor over email or over the telephone. Please do download those slides in advance and read through them. Again, you should be able to find the slides in the forums. If you can't find them, then perhaps just drop your tutor an email and just ask where they are located, or if you can have a copy. Attempt the activities, so bring along your answers and your questions. It's always good to know where you feel confident or where you might need to really concentrate on the tutorial at certain points. And try and find a comfortable place with no distractions in which to join in the tutorial. It's always helpful not to have your little kid running in and wanting attention just at the important part where you're going to learn something from a tutor. Try and be prepared, so have the right equipment ready. If you've looked at the notes or the presentation slides in advance, you'll be able to work that out. So it might be that you need a calculator, or if you're drawing a graph, then you might need a pencil and ruler and graph paper. Certainly you will need a notepad and pen unless you're writing your notes digitally. And there is lots of advice on the OU website about taking notes. So if you go onto Tutor Home and go onto the search bar and just maybe search for note taking, you'll get some advice there on how to go about that. But my approach normally would be to print slides and annotate them, make some notes on them, maybe draw some little helpful diagrams. But you can obviously do that electronically as well, so you don't necessarily have to have a printer. You can open the slides in PowerPoint and add things onto them there. It's always helpful to write things in your own words rather than in the tutor's words, because then when you read them back, you'll interpret them in your own way, if that makes sense. So another few tips is save a copy of the slides so that you can refer to them even after the module or the course has finished. So do remember to do that. Try and be organised with your OU work and your OU resources. It's really, it will help you in the long run. And on that note, it's also a good idea to download and save PDFs of the module materials so that you can refer back to that information after you have finished studying. You do need to be wary of copyright though. So because of copyright law, you should not share the files with other people or the content of the files. That information is just for yourself. So during the tutorial, please do raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Ask your questions in the chat pod. Don't be afraid to ask, because most other students will want to know the information as well. And I think that is all from me. So I'll go to Danny very briefly, see if you've got anything to add there.
I only have one thing, and it did make me laugh. You said make sure that you find somewhere quiet and so that you can study. And I'm currently sat in a house. I'm looking after a house with my 3 children running around me, asking me multiple questions. So it's possible. It is possible to do it. It is ideal that you have a quiet area to study, but I've managed up to now. So, but yes. Quiet place is preferable.
I think some of our students get really good at multitasking as they're going through their course. So yeah, thank you for all your contributions there in the poll. I'm going to now hand over to Mariana. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you for your time here this evening. I'm just going to talk fairly briefly about the softer benefits of attending tutorials. And actually, I think both Danny and Charlene have covered them a little bit. But just to make these explicit. And I also have a poll. You're going to be real experts at these polls by the time you finish. And my question to you is, how might attending tutorials impact on your relationship with your tutor? And you can tick any that you like. Do you think your tutor may recognise your name and know a little bit about you? Do you think your tutor might understand your circumstances a little better? You may develop a rapport with your tutor based on your exchanges and your questions, or even just chatting about the weather at the beginning. You may be able to use the tutorial to clarify areas in your TMAs where you received feedback. Yep. Your tutor would know that you're really committed to the module in your studies, and you also get to learn about your tutor's style and preferences. So these I think you are picking all of them really, and I think they're all valid. You know, I think that is what happens when you've been to a tutorial. But I also think it's really important to remember that your tutor is the person who is most committed to seeing you succeed. Okay, so when we develop a relationship with you and we get to know you, that is the best part of our jobs. We love that. And we love seeing you succeed. I go to some of my students' graduations, and honestly, the last one, I just spent the whole time crying. And all their relatives were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm so emotional. Look, my student, she's graduated." It's as rewarding as seeing your own family member graduating. So we're really invested in your success. So be kind to us and let us get to know you. What about your fellow students? Well, tutorials provide an opportunity to get to know your fellow students as well. And I don't necessarily mean that you will be able to have long conversations with them in that setting, because we all know that that's a little bit awkward, and it does feel like a really sort of performative session where everybody else can literally see what you're chatting about if you're, for example, chatting on the chat box. But you will recognize names, and maybe you'll be able to take those tentative relationships offline. Maybe you'll meet or bump into each other in forums. Maybe someone will post something and say, "Hey, do you want to join my WhatsApp group?" You know, WhatsApp groups can be controversial and can be spaces which are not always healthy, but sometimes they're really positive. Sometimes the people that you meet in tutorials are ahead of you in their studies, and that's because the OU doesn't necessarily force everybody to study in a particular order. And so somebody might have done their more advanced modules first and then be backfilling with level 1 modules, for example. And that's really, really useful, because often these kinds of more advanced students can give you advice about, "Oh, that module was really good, but I didn't enjoy this element of it." And you know, if you don't like doing experiments, then probably you want a more theoretical model. Or perhaps you're a really hands-on person and they say, "Oh, that was fabulous. Just did experiment after experiment. Really worked well for me." And so your fellow students are a fount of knowledge about navigating your way through the Open University. And of course, at one point, you might be able to act as a mentor to others as well. So it's a community, and we all like to contribute, and we all like to take from our community in various ways. Now, Danny said something earlier about how her confidence has grown and how she could not imagine 4.5 years ago being brave enough and confident enough to come on a forum like this and actually speak so authoritatively and so well about her experiences. Now, that is exactly right. Tutorials do build your self-confidence, even if you start off just by lurking in the background. You know, firstly, we provide guidance on how to tackle a particular question, or we might provide guidance on how to even manage your time. You know, it doesn't always have to be around the actual module materials. It could be guidance on how to cope with a lot of stress or a lot of commitments and still develop your academic identity. So we are here to offer guidance, and Open University students are the most remarkable, amazing students on the face of the planet. They're always juggling a million different things, and we learn a lot from you, but we've also always seen lots of different situations that crop up in students' lives, and therefore we can build on that experience of having seen situations that are perhaps troubling or difficult or provide obstacles to you in completing your studies, and we can advise on how to overcome those obstacles. In a practical sense, we might offer a demonstration on how to use a particular piece of software or how to write a piece of code, for example, during a tutorial. And, you know, that thing that was just sitting there on your laptop looking really scary and you thought, no, I can't even bear to open it. Suddenly, it's not scary anymore. Oh, you saw me open it and you saw that it actually didn't turn around and bite you. We just clicked a couple of things and suddenly we had a nice chart. Wow, that is empowering. So observing and learning from the guidance or the demonstration really might help increase your sense of self-confidence and this belief in that you feel you understand how to get started with your TMA question or task. Okay, it's about increasing your self-belief because we know you can do it. You just have to believe it too. So let's talk about that. Tutorials and belonging. Let's think about that for a moment. Belonging. A lot of our students tell us that they feel a sense of being imposters. Now, I'm just trying to find the whiteboard. You share. Here we are. Here's our whiteboard. Now, I wonder if you could share with us what makes you feel like you belong. I'm going to put that question here. Nobody can see who's writing what. So, hopefully you've got the drawing tools on the left-hand side of your screen. And I'm just going to draw a little spider diagram. Make sure that you have got those drawing tools available to you. So I'm going to start this off. I'm going to say, what makes me feel like I belong? Someone knows who I am and greets me by name. Another thing that might make me feel that I belong is that someone knows something about me and asks how that is getting on. It might be something about my studies, but it might also not be. It might be something about, for example, my family life. You might know, for example, that my child perhaps broke their leg last week, and they're like, "Oh, how's your boy's leg?" Actually, he didn't break his leg, but you get the idea. You know, they might say something, really, something about me that feels like, oh, somebody knows me and they're interested in me and they ask me about it. I can see some writing on here, which is great. No, not sure I can. So has anybody else got any anything else? What makes you feel like you belong? Surely I'm not the only person to have ideas on what makes me feel like I belong. So remember, to write on the whiteboard, you have to click the T button. Taking time for us. Wow, that's really good. Yeah, taking time for us. Knowing that others are doing similar activities. Yeah, absolutely. You're all doing everything at the same time and you're all sharing those experiences of having to work out that really tricky TMA. Oh my goodness, wasn't that a difficult one, that one last week? That others are having the same successes and difficulties I am. Yeah, you're not alone. Yes, having a contribution to make. Yes. Absolutely. Knowing that others have similar ambitions. Well, that's brilliant. I love these. And, I do think that one of the best ways to develop a community when we are all atomized by the very fact that this is distance learning is by engaging in all the online activities. Not all of them maybe, but in as many as you feel comfortable with and you can get to, because everybody knows you're super busy people. And that really does mean forums and tutorials. I love these contributions here. Having another student to help work through the problems. I've got an interesting idea. And I wonder if you can find this community of students through the forum sometimes. Having something in common with others. Yes. And you'll know about the things that you might have in common with others when you introduce yourself on forums. And you know, always at the beginning of modules, hi, I'm this, I'm so-and-so, I live here, I do this with my life, you know, that kind of thing. You don't have to be super personal if that feels uncomfortable at that moment. But certainly reaching out, making those bonds. You don't have to make a bond with everybody in the Open University community, because it's a huge community with thousands of students, tens of thousands of students. In fact, we're the largest university in Britain. But you just need to find your community. And that can be as small as 2 or 3 people. It still makes a difference to you. Okay. So I love all these contributions. I'm just going to stop sharing this and just nip back to the slides and make this point, which is that when you have a sense of belonging, this can enable you to have greater resilience to obstacles and difficulties that arise during your study journey. Now, this is quite a long study journey because most of the time it's part-time, although I know there are a few brave souls doing 2 and even 3 modules here tonight. But for many people, it is a part-time journey and it does take years. And we would all be naive, wouldn't we, to think that in that very long time, you won't come across different obstacles that, you know, just come up from nowhere. You haven't planned them. They're just stuff that gets thrown in your way. So in those moments of difficulty, you need resilience. And one of the things that will give you the most resilience is having that community and that sense of belonging. You are now an Open University student. And actually, even if you don't finish your degree, nobody will ever take that identity away from you. You've been here. And we've left a little bit of a footprint on you, even if you've only been with the Open University for a year. That sounds quite sinister, doesn't it? But it's a good thing. It's a plant. We're planting seeds. That's how I like to think of it. So even if you do have to step away from your studies, you are more likely to come back and finish. And finally, I'd just like to say that tutorials can actually be fun. They're not really tedious sessions where you just talked at and patronized. Honestly, they're not. The best tutorials might ask you to play a game, maybe watch a video, move into a breakout room and discuss what action to take next with a small group of your fellow students, or encourage you, you know, in a slightly more, quiet way to respond to polls and whiteboard tasks. And almost all tutorials are interactive, as Charlene said. But this still allows attendees to lurk in the background and not join in if they feel shy or it's simply not their cup of tea. Okay, so tutors will always give that space and that allowance to allow people to lurk if they don't feel like plunging in and turning on their mics or contributing in the chats or contributing any other way. So I don't know how many of you have already attended any tutorials, but maybe you've attended tutorials in other educational settings. What kind of activities do you enjoy? What do you like doing in tutorials? We can have another whiteboard, or you can pop your things in the chat box, and certainly we will take away that feedback and think about them in our own tutorials. So that will be quite useful for us to know. What do you like? What feels good to you? What feels comfortable? What feels helpful? While you're typing, and I leave you with that question, I might just hand over to Danny to ask her if she'd like to tell us a little bit more about her journey and about how she gradually became more confident to take part and now even be a speaker in a tutorial? What was that process like, Danny?
Nerve-wracking. As I said, in the first module I took, I was a definite ghost at the back. I just let other students crack on, ask questions and participate. I didn't even participate in polls and things like that. I was too scared to. But my second module, it really focused on participation and confidence, and that's all part of your studies. I'm unsure whether that's with all OU degrees module pathways, I don't know, but it was definitely a key feature in my second module that you had to engage in where you felt you were, and part of that was participating in the forums and in tutorials. And just through that year alone, I felt like my confidence was completely boosted. So the OU has guided me through that. And as the years have gone on, the requirement to use the forums for my studies, it meant that I no longer feel worried about participating. If anything, I don't know if I've said already, but I've already got all of my tutorials booked for the rest of this year, all the way up till May, because they're a key. As you said, we're paying for it, so use it. That I've had these booked in, so I booked nothing else around it, so I know that they're there. Yeah, yeah. That the confidence has been guided by the OU. It's a brilliant path. It's great.
Thanks so much for that, Danny. And having that honesty is so refreshing, and it's so interesting, and it's really good because it reflects how Danny feels that this is a safe space in which to discuss her journey and where she started from and where she is now, which I actually think is a hugely inspiring discussion. So I think we've come to the end of our slides. And so we'd like to hand over to you guys and let us know if you have any questions to any of us. The three of us are here.
Right. Please feel free to raise your hand or pop any questions you might have in the chat. We've got just a couple of minutes left for questions. Oh, that's brilliant, Dom. I'm really glad you enjoyed the talk. Is there anything about tutorials anyone still has questions on? I can see a few people are typing, so I'll just be patient.
The last thing that I would like to say is that it's really interesting, but our data shows here at the OU that the people who go back and watch the videos of recorded tutorials are actually people who have been at the tutorial. And sometimes, you know, life is chaotic. Try to set aside time to attend a tutorial, and then, you know, one of your little ones has a screaming tantrum, or a phone call that you can't get out of, or the washing machine breaks down, leaks all over the kitchen floor. You know, stuff happens. But because you've been intending to go to that tutorial, maybe you were half listening while all these catastrophes were happening around you, you are much more likely to then go back and listen to the recording and take that learning and guidance from it. So really the most important thing would be to actually just try and make that effort, even if each time it doesn't perfectly come off. So Rach has asked, how often would you expect to attend tutorials? Weekly, more or less? So it very much depends on the intensity in which you're studying, because if you're studying 3 modules, then you'll have tutorials each of your modules on a really regular basis. So I can imagine you attending a tutorial every week. Yes, because you're studying 3 modules all in one go. If you're just studying a single module, then I would imagine that probably the intensity of the tutorials would be fewer, you know, possibly twice a month, depending on the pace of the module. I don't know whether Charlene agrees or has a different thought on this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Mariana. And as you go up the levels of study, at level 2 and at level 3, you get less and less tutorials because you're starting to become more of an independent learner. So we certainly look after you and sort of give you lots more guidance in that first year, and then that will feed into the other years as well.
That's brilliant. Right. Well, it is 8 p.m. on the dot. So I reckon we let everybody go and enjoy the rest of your night. And I know I speak on behalf of all the presenters when I say we wish you the best of luck with your studies. And do not hesitate to reach out to your tutors if you need help with something. Right. So thanks, everybody, and have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good evening.
Right. Charlene and Mariana, do you know how I stop the recording and then where I can find the recording?